President, I want to take those who are following this debate on a little trip through the world of plastic. I'm talking about the world of credit cards, in this case, specifically about debit cards, because something happened over the weekend which has changed that world dramatically. And it's important for consumers, retailers, and voters across America to understand what happened. On October the 1st, on Saturday, the rules on how much a credit card company and a bank that issues a debit card can collect every time you use the debit card changed. They call it a swipe fee. Makes sense. You hand them the credit card or you do it yourself and you swipe it through the machine and you pay for a transaction. Back in the old days that I can recall, some people would write out a check. This is the new form of check. It's a debit card. And when you swipe it through the machine and the machine accepts it, the money comes right out of your checking account to the retailer where you did the business. It's very convenient. People are using it more and more. In fact, over half the transactions at most retailers now are done with either credit or debit cards. What the consumer doesn't know is that there is a charge each time that card is swiped. It's called the swipe fee or the interchange fee. And what is it? Well, it is established by the two basically duopoly or monopoly credit card companies, Visa and MasterCard. They run the whole show, and they've been under antitrust investigation in the past. I'm sure there will be in the future. They set the rules. And here's what the rules are. If you run a restaurant, let's say you run a grocery store near north in Chicago, like Art Potash, who's a close friend of mine, a family-owned grocery store, and you say, well, I have to take plastic to do business, then Visa and MasterCard say, well, then you have to pay each time a customer swipes that card. How much do they pay? Well, it's a secret. Basically, consumers don't know, individual retailers do, and the individual retailers have little or no bargaining power, as you can imagine, with Visa and MasterCard and the big banks. So we passed a law here over a year ago, an amendment that I offered to the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act, which said to the Federal Reserve Board, investigate this. Find out how much it actually costs the bank and credit card company to process a transaction with a debit card. Well, they came back after a long study and they said, if it uses a PIN number, which some do, it's about 4 cents. If you sign it, it's about 7 to 12 cents. And then they said, incidentally, the average charge by the credit card company and bank for each swipe fee is 44 cents, dramatically larger than the cost of the transaction to the bank or the credit card company. Remember in the old days when we processed checks, it cost pennies to process a check no matter what the face amount was. But today, every retailer faces the 44-cent average swipe fee every time somebody uses a debit card. You can understand that some retailers don't like this much. There's no competition. These banks and credit card companies tell them this is it, take it or leave it. You don't like it, don't use plastic. And it's secret. Nobody knows it except the retailer, the bank, and the credit card company. A hidden fee. And it's a killer for a lot of small businesses. I was in Rock Island, Illinois, and Carl, who is the manager of the Rock Island Country Market, said, we got a special deal here, Senator. People can come in the neighborhood in Rock Island, Illinois, and in the morning, I give them a cup of coffee and a donut for 99 cents. Pretty good deal in this day and age. Sure is, isn't it? Compared to what we pay. He said, I want to get them in the store. You know what? They turn around and go to the cash register and use plastic. Well, I wasn't breaking even at 99 cents. Now I'm paying 44 cents to some bank and credit card company because people have used plastic. That world changed October 1st, last Saturday. The new law went into effect where the Federal Reserve established the ceiling, the maximum that can be charged for a debit card swipe fee that's issued by the largest banks in America. And the maximum now comes down to about 24 cents. Is this a big deal? Well, it certainly is, because each year now in the economy, swipe fees account for about $10 or $12 billion. $10 or $12 billion in additional charges to consumers and loss of profitability by businesses. And so you can imagine $10 or $12 billion, even after it's been discounted by the Federal Reserve to about half that amount, $5 or $6 billion, has the banks in an uproar. Mr. President, I guess it's a great honor now, but the Wall Street Journal published a story on Friday, and they had one of their people that they invited in to comment, and he said that this new bank fee that's being charged by Bank of America on debit cards is the Durbin fee. The Durbin fee. The same thing was said by the Chicago Tribune on Saturday. Well, let me say at the outset that I am honored to be associated with an effort to reduce costs to retailers and consumers across America. What we are doing is fair to try to strike some balance in an industry that has shown little or no balance. And one of the worst offenders in this is Bank of America, the largest bank in the United States. Did you see what they did on Friday? They announced that anybody who had a debit card at Bank of America was now going to be subject to a $5 monthly fee because of this reform. What I have said in the media, and I'll say here, is Bank of America customers, vote with your feet. Get the heck out of that bank. Find yourself a bank or credit union that won't gouge you for $5 a month and still will give you a debit card that you can use every single day. What Bank of America has done here is an outrage. Last week, when they announced that they were charging their own customers a $5 monthly fee for the use of the debit card, they went overboard. They are overcharging their customers even for this new debit card reform. But it's nothing new in the history of Bank of America. Consumers across America and the customers of Bank of America are rightfully outraged. It's hard to believe that a bank would impose such a fee on loyal customers who simply are trying to access their own money on deposit at Bank of America, especially when Bank of America for years has been encouraging their customers to use debit cards as much as possible. It is particularly hard to believe this fee would come from a bank with a track record like Bank of America. After helping to drive our economy off the cliff's edge in 2008, Bank of America was happy to accept a $45 billion federal bailout for their stupidity, their greed, and their mistakes. And it was just as happy to take that money and hand out $3.3 billion in employee bonuses in the same year, 2008. Don't forget the track record of Bank of America when it comes to handling mortgages. They picked up this company countrywide, which had issued mortgages all across America that were going bad. And now the record of Bank of America when it comes to processing these same mortgages is equally disappointing. When it's not losing paperwork or refusing to answer the phone, Bank of America is foreclosing on American families right and left. But at least this time, Bank of America is being open about the new charge to its loyal customers. In contrast to the overdraft fees, research fees, swipe fees, and other hidden fees that it charged, this time Bank of America is being upfront about sticking it to its own customers. And transparency is a good thing. It allows customers, as I said, to vote with their feet. Not every bank treats its customers like Bank of America, and consumers can decide whether Bank of America's values reflect their own. Bank of America is the largest bank by assets in the United States. Now it is crying poverty, saying it is forced to hit their debit card holders with this new monthly fee because Congress passed swipe fee reform. I don't buy it. Here's the reality. Bank of America and banks in general are making billions of dollars still with this new reform in the law off of credit and debit card swipe fees. Swipe fees are an estimated $50 billion per year moneymaker for the banking industry. $50 billion. Bank of America alone makes billions from swipe fees each year. But Bank of America didn't earn those fees by competition. Instead, Bank of America receives these billions because Visa and MasterCard, this duopoly that runs the credit card business in America, basically fix these prices, and retailers and consumers have no voice in the process. This price fixing has immunized the swipe fee revenue stream from competition. Well, now that Bank of America is out in the open with this overcharge of their own customers, it's time for real competition to step in. The Federal Reserve found that it cost a bank on average 7 cents to conduct a debit transaction, a signature transaction. It costs a lot less, I'm sure, for Bank of America with its economies of scale. But the Fed found the Bank of America was getting an average of 44 cents instead of 7 cents. You simply can't make that type of enormous profit margin, nearly 600%, in a transparent and competitive market. In a free and fair market, these profits would be competed down to a reasonable level. Without competition, credit card companies, these banks, like Bank of America, will continue to win. Consumers and retailers, and of course now the Bank of America's own customers, will lose. Today I've written a letter to the CEO of Bank of America. His name is Brian Moynihan. And I've told him that it wasn't just me alone, but others have done a little calculation on his $5 monthly fee. And you know what we find out? When they thought that the swipe fee was going to be limited to 12 cents, Bank of America said, well, that will cost us $2 billion a year. Turns out the Federal Reserve said no, it'll be 24 cents. So by our estimates, this new reform of the swipe fee may cost Bank of America $1 billion a year in revenue. Guess what? If you do the calculation of $5 a month on the number of reported debit card holders of Bank of America, they'll bring back twice as much as their projected loss on this new law. They're overcharging their own customers. Once again, twice as much as they should if they just want to cover the hidden fees that they had in the past. That's unfair to consumers. It's unfair to their customers. It's unfair to do it in this tough economy when a lot of Bank of America customers across America are struggling to get by. What I'm basically calling on Mr. Moynihan to do is to justify this $5 monthly fee based on their projected debit card transaction losses and the number of people that they have holding debit cards by their company. I didn't come up with this alone. There's a gentleman by the name of Lazarus, who's a business reporter in California. He was the first one who called it to my attention on the Lehrer Report on Friday night, and we've looked into it further, and it's clear again, Bank of America is overcharging its own customers. Well, I can just tell you, it isn't the first time. Most people are aware of the fact that Bank of America was sued for overcharging for various fees, like overdraft fees in the past. And because of that suit and the possibility of losing it, they entered into a settlement to pay over $400 million for overcharging their own customers. They're doing it again. Bank of America, with this monthly fee, is overcharging its customers again by any reasonable standard for a loss of revenue based on this new law. But the last point I want to make, and I see some on the floor, including a senator or two who may have a different point of view, but the last point I want to make is this. When I was back in Illinois, I stood with the retailers, and I hope that the retailers of Tennessee and Utah will be in touch with my colleagues, and let's hear their side of the story. They have been victimized by these banks and credit cards for too long. What we do with this law is establish a reasonable standard of compensation and now some disclosure about what is being charged for transactions. I want to help small businesses and large retailers too, for that matter, across America. Their profitability, the success of their business means more Americans go to work. If you want to stand up on the floor of the Senate and defend the Wall Street banks like Bank of America and the credit card companies, be my guest. I would rather stand with the consumers and retailers who've been taken to the cleaners for years and years by these debit card swipe fees. The latest outrage by the Bank of America is a reminder that when it comes to valuing customers, those banks that don't gouge their customers, that don't overcharge for debit fees, are the ones that deserve America's business.